Now, if you want other help, you can schedule time with me. But I'd like you to take a first shot at being with the TAs. If you can't go for that, or it doesn't, or they can't answer your question, then you can come and see me also. And then we're going to have one more during the week, but that's going to be, I have another class, so I have to consult with them also. So there'll be one other day during the week when, one other period during the week when there'll be TAs available to help you. Okay? But as I said, it's impossible to schedule it so that everyone can attend. This can't be done. Okay? Because, okay. Any questions? Okay, let's go for a few more problems here. We have a few more here. So this is the second set of homework problems. By the way, I changed the due date for your homework from last week till Thursday of this week, just because this is the first time that you had to work with the system, so it might be tricky. Okay? So the due date has been changed to Thursday, so some of you didn't get to do it, so you'll still have time to do it. But the second set of homework is due on Sunday. Okay, and this is the second part of the second homework. So let's look at some of these. Okay, can you read this? My rectangular cabbage patch. So that's just a rectangle. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a cabbage patch or something else. Has a total area of 120 square feet. Now, by the way, most countries, I don't think any countries use feet except for the United States, but since this book comes from the United States, they're using feet. But how big is a foot, approximately? How many feet, approximately, are in a meter? Anybody know? Basically 3. No, 3 feet in 1 meter. So a foot is about a third of a meter, just so you have an idea of how big it is. It's a little bit smaller than that, only slightly, maybe 10% smaller than that. Anyway, 3 feet is about 1 meter. So if a meter is this big, a foot is about this big. Okay, so it's supposed to be maybe the size of a big foot or something like that. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, doesn't matter. My rectangular cabbage patch has a total area of 120 square feet. So area should not be a linear number, right? Should not be a linear measurement. If I said my cabbage patch has a total area of 5 meters, you should be upset. Right? If I said my cabbage patch has an area of 5 meters, you should be very upset. Right? Because that's 5 meters is a length, it's not an area. Right? So I can't have an area that's 5 meters long, that doesn't mean anything, right? But if I said 5 square meters, that's completely different, but I'm just making that point. Okay, so area should be square. Square meters, square feet, whatever it is should be square. Find its perimeter in terms of the width x. So what does perimeter mean? Perimeter means the length around. Okay? So the total area, so what they want you to do is something like this, right? The area, what's the formula for area? Length times width, right? X times y, length times width, something like that, right? X is the length, y is the width, and it's x times y, right? And what's the formula for the perimeter? 2x plus 2y, right? 2 is x, so x plus x, y plus y, right? So 2x plus 2y. Okay? Now, the total area is what? 120, right? So, what does it say? Find the perimeter in terms of the width. So we want to write the perimeter in terms of the width. So I want to say that y equals 120 over x, right? This means this, right? Can you read that? Is it too dark? Okay, so y equals that. So I can write p equals what? 2x plus 2 times. Okay, and that's all they wanted. You can simplify it. That's what they wanted. Okay? Okay, let's do the next one. A piano manufacturer has a fixed daily cost of $1,200 and a marginal cost of $1,600 per piano. So we need to explain some of these words. So, first of all, what's a piano? Okay, so everybody knows what a piano is, right? Okay, now, what is a piano manufacturer? It's a company that makes pianos, right? Okay. And now, what does fixed cost mean, or daily fixed cost mean? So when we talk about cost, we're going to write cost as a function of the number of pianos that you make. And that makes sense, right? Your costs usually will depend on how many you make. If you make one piano, it probably costs you less than if you make 100 pianos, right? Because you have to pay more workers, you need more wood, blah, 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 right? So it should cost you more, right? So it makes sense to write C as a function of X, right? That's what this says, right? Cost depends on X. Now, usually in economics, they'll write this cost function with two pieces in it. One piece won't have X in it, and the second piece will have X in it. Okay? So one piece will just have a number, like let's say 1,200. Okay? And another piece will have an X in it. If neither piece had an X in it, then it wouldn't depend on X, right? Cost wouldn't depend on X. If there was no X in here at all, then, you know, if I just had like that plus that, then I would say the cost is always $1,900. That wouldn't depend on X, so that's not what we normally think of. So one piece should have an X in it. So let's say this was like that. Or let's make it something like that. Okay, so that piece has an X. Now it could be a more complicated function of X. Instead of just 300X, it could be 300X squared, it could be anything, any formula you want to put in there, but something with X, otherwise it doesn't depend on X. Okay, so what does this say? If I produce 0 pianos, how much does it cost me? X is the number of pianos, so if X is 0, what's the cost? 1,200. If I produce 1 piano, how much does it cost me? 1,500, right? If I produce 2 pianos, how much does it cost me? 1,800. If I produce 3 pianos, how much does it cost me? 21. If I produce 4, 2,400. If I produce 5, 15, 2,700, right? If I produce 6, 18 plus 12, right? 3,000, right? And so on, right? So is the cost going up? As I produce more? Yes, it is. Okay? So one part of this equation depends on X, and the other part doesn't, right? So we call the part that doesn't depend on X the fixed costs. It means it doesn't depend on X, they're fixed. Independent of X is what fixed means. Okay? So what's the fixed cost here in this function? In this cost function? 1,200. Okay, that's called the fixed cost. And the other part we call the variable cost. Variable means changing or changeable cost. So what's the formula for the variable cost? 300x. Right? So what's the fixed cost here? 1200, and what's the variable cost function here? 300x, okay? You understand? Okay, so, sorry, it said 1600, but okay. So actually, I should change this by the problem. The fixed costs for this particular company are 1200, and the variable costs are not 300. So you could say that it's 300, I said it was 300 per piano, right? If you produce one piano, it's plus 300. If you produce two, it's plus another 300. If you produce three, it's plus another 300, and so on, right? So, okay, but here they're saying it's 1600. Now, there's one more word there, and that is, they didn't use variable cost, they used marginal cost. And marginal cost just means the cost of producing one more piano. So what's the cost of producing 10 pianos here? It's 16,000 plus 1,200 is what? 16,000 plus 1,200, 17,200, right? What's the cost of producing 11 pianos? So now it's going to be plus 1,600, right? So what's that? 18,800, right? So what was the cost of producing one more piano? I went from here to here. How much did I increase? 1,600. So what was the marginal cost of producing another piano? 1,600. Where did that number come from? From here, right? It's the coefficient of x, right? Right? So the marginal cost is the coefficient of x when you have this linear function. This is a linear relationship. If it was like this, it wouldn't work anymore. But it's not like that. It's like this. So it works. So the marginal cost is 1,600. Means the cost of producing another piano. Right? The cost of producing another piano is 1,600. If this was 300, then what would the marginal cost be? The cost of producing another piano would be an extra $300. Right? So that's what they mean by marginal cost and fixed cost. Okay? So, so that's what you need to know. So what is the fixed cost? 1,200. What is the cost of producing the 11th piano? The 11th is different than 11. What's the difference between asking, what's the cost of producing the 11th piano versus what's the cost of producing 11 pianos? What's the difference between that? Or suppose I say, suppose this is the function. Suppose that's the function. What's the cost of producing the 11th piano? $300, no, here. $300, right? Right. That's the 11th one. But what's the cost of producing 11? Not the 11th. 11. What's that? That's, or 11, put in 11 here, you get 33 plus 12, right? 33 plus 12 is 45, right? So it's 4,500, right? So the cost of producing 11 is 4,500. The cost of producing the 11th is 300, right? So a different question, right? Okay, and same kind of thing here. One last thing, since we don't really have time to do this, but suppose that my revenue, what does revenue mean? Income. Suppose I sell the pianos for $500. If I sell one piano, how much revenue do I get? $500. No. Revenue is just how much comes in. Revenue doesn't take into account your cost at all. Just how much comes in. So if I sell one piano, what's my revenue? $500. If I sell two pianos, what's my revenue? $1,000. If I sell three pianos, what's my revenue? $1,500. If I sell four pianos, what's my revenue? $2,000, right? Right? Everyone understand? Is that my profit? No, definitely not. If I sell if I sell 10 pianos, what's my revenue? Revenue. $5,000. If I sell 10 pianos, what's my cost? 3,000, 4,200, right? So I got a revenue of 5,000, but my cost was what? 4,200. So what's my profit? 800, right? So did I make a profit? Yes, I made a profit. How about if I sell one piano? What's my revenue? $500. What was my cost? 1,500. Did I make a profit? No, I had negative, right? 1,500 was my cost, so I lost money, right? I lost $1,000, right? If you graph these two functions, the cost function, here's x, here's the cost, right? What's it look like? This is the function. Suppose this is the function. You can graph that. That's a simple function, right? It's just a straight line, right? What's the slope of that function? What's the slope of that line? 300, right? This is the slope, and this is the y-intercept, right? So the y-intercept is 1,200, and the slope is 300. So it looks like that, something like that, right? Right? That's the cost function, right? Now what's the, what did I say the profit was? No, sorry, what did I say how much do we sell these pianos for? $500, right? So if I sell 0 pianos, how much money do I make? 0. If I sell 1 piano, how much money do I make? 500. How much revenue do I get? Sorry, how much revenue do I get? 500. If I sell 2, what do I get? 1,000. So it looks like this. So if I sell this amount, according to this picture, which I didn't draw carefully at all, so I might be wrong, but according to this picture, my revenue is less than my cost, right? Is that called profit? No, that's called loss, right? I lost money, right? Now, as I said, I don't know if I didn't draw this carefully, but basically the idea is right. And it's supposedly here, my revenue is still lower than my cost, so I've still lost money. Finally, when I get to here, what happens? My revenue and my cost are the same. I didn't lose money and I didn't make money. And then when I go beyond that, what happens? The revenue is higher than the cost and you made money, right? You made a profit. Now this is a very simplified picture where everything is linear. But in the real world, things aren't linear. Right? There's no reason, it doesn't work like that, right? Things don't work like so simple, right? A company doesn't have these kind of real... Well, anyway, so this point has a special name. Well, first of all, what's special about this point? We don't make money and we don't lose money, right? That's called break even. We break even. That's the slang for it, but they use it. Break even. Okay? So we break even. That's called the break even point. So if you go past the break even point, you're making a profit, generally speaking. And if you go lower than it, you're usually losing money. So that's called the break even point. Can you find the break even point? Yeah, because you have two functions. R of x equals two lines, actually. R of x equals 500x, that's a line. And the other one, C of x, equals 1,200 plus 300x. What do we want to find? So one of these is C of x, one of them is R of x. What do we want to find to get the break-even point? We want to find out where they intersect, right? The intersection of two lines should be easy for you to do, right? You have two equations. Basically, you just call this y and this y, and then just solve it. And you should be able to solve it easily, and therefore you can find the break-even point, and that's usually what they ask you to do in this book. Okay? So you want to be able to find the break-even point. What does that mean? the place where if you go beyond it, you make a profit. If you don't go beyond it, you lose money. Right? Okay, that's all for today. So I will try to arrange a room for, what did we say, Monday, second period, for extra help with the teacher.